Science has created some pretty awesome metals to make knives out of these days. Thanks, science. But is that always what you want? Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the KnifeCenter. Welcome to KniFAQ, episode 258 of the series where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. What we do is we pull your questions, or a selection of them at least, from the comments below these videos. I try to answer them the best of my ability, and Thomas behind the camera makes snarky comments.
Copy paste.
That's what you said last week.
Prove it.
Or is it? Let's get into the first question today, shall we? Which comes from Aaron Pfeh. Hey DCA, and your larger than average hands, slightly larger, thank you very much. I'm after a Bushcraft knife with the best edge retention, as sharpening to me is just a bit tedious. Any suggestions? Sure. I will say on the opposite end of that, even the better end or the higher edge retention steels will need sharpening eventually. So you can kind of put off the task, but when the task comes, it's going to be even more tedious than the sharpening sessions on the less edge holdy steels. Technical way of talking about it. Take for example the Mora Amberg, used 12C27 steel. Very tough, easy to maintain, but it doesn't hold the edge too long. A way you can kind of prolong your edges, no matter what steel you're using here, is strop early, strop often. It doesn't have to be an extensive, tedious thing. A few swipes on a strop, or sometimes even a pant leg, although higher edge retention steels aren't going to respond to that as well, certainly. But that's the old myth anyways. A pair of blue jeans can be a sort of a strop in a pinch. But yeah, strop early, strop often to keep the tedium at bay a little bit longer. Most edge retention for a bushcraft knife. Here's the thing with a bushcraft knife or a survival knife or any kind of outdoor knife, is you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater a little bit. You still want a degree of toughness in your steel because you're going to be doing things that may be a little rougher on the blade. So I would never suggest something like, your bushcraft knife be M398 steel, because it would chip out and then you really have a tedious time, especially if you're in the field.
Oh, what do you mean I got a new saw?
Or a serrated blade. Could make a self-serrated blade. It'd be almost like some jagged VEF serrations, or no, not the standard ones, but the flat top VEF flat top serrations. Those, they're a thing. Trust me. So, I would say two popular choices for this: 3V historically, awesome steel because it holds an edge really well and it is plenty tough. If you want a stainless, you could go with MagnaCut because it's kind of the best tough stainless steel that still has real high edge retention. Great combination. So let's start with some MagnaCut, shall we? The Lulu from NAFS is absolutely a bushcraft knife. Comes with a Scandi grind, which is like pure bushcraft all the way. Works really, really well on wood. And it's a very convenient size, very convenient, about 3 inches, made in the USA by White River Knives for NAFS. Great, underrated company, for about $245. It's very comfortable, and it's very nice. Comes with a nice Kydex sheath. There you go. Definitely a good option. You may think it's too small to be like a primary belt knife. I kind of think of this as more of a companion sized knife to a larger tool. That could be an axe, hatchet, or saw. It could be a larger chopping fixed blade.
Carcass splitter.
Oh, where? It's over there. I can't reach it from here.
Too bad.
If you wish, carcass splitter, certainly. So I do have a couple of Molaja items here with your MagnaCut steel. The White River Ursus 45 in MagnaCut, and the Rafe F4 Gen 2 in 3V could be very good options. Now these knives do not have Scandi grinds. Technically, a bushcraft knife doesn't have to have a Scandi grind, but a Scandi grind knife is almost always definitely a bushcraft knife. I know there are exceptions. So that puts these two in kind of a more broadly applicable use case scenario, potentially. I don't know. Maybe I'm just full of it. Anyway, let's talk about the White River here. Ursus 45. You got a 4.5-inch blade, which is a great size. A lot of bushcraft knives tend to be in like a 3.5 to 4-inch range for primary use, because often in a bushcraft scenario, you do have other tools with you. Whereas if it's a survival knife, you might only have a knife. Anyway, I'm doing a lot of waffling and rambling here, aren't I?
I ordered pancakes.
What about crepes? Can we do blintzes later?
Whipped cream.
Yes, definitely. $270 for this. I'm sorry, folks. USA made, again, Magna Cut steel. This also has a feature many bushcraft knives come with, or many bushcrafters appreciate, a crisp spine, so you can strike a fire steel with it. That's really nice. The high flat grind on this lets it be maybe a better hunter, better all-around knife, as opposed to being a Scandi grind, which, while it can be an all-around thing, is definitely specialized at wood carving for sure. You can still carve wood with this too, of course. Anyway, really, really awesome. Full tang, really comfy burlap micarta handles on this. I love the understated design of it. It comes with a sheath of Kydex with a loop. It looks a lot like the Lulu's sheath, but then again, it's the same company that made it, so that kind of makes sense. Wait, no. That's not the right sheath. That's the right sheath. Silly me. Well, it's funny. The Rafe sheath looks a lot like the White River sheath there too. The Bushcraft, or the Ursus 45 here, does come with a fire steel included in the loop right here in a matching handle material. So that's really cool. And you could scrape it, but I won't do it on this because, it's inventory. It's not mine. Now, I did say the F4 Gen 2 for Rafe. This is actually, do they actually call this Bushcraft, or yes, they call it a Bushcraft survival knife. So that's a good, I would say that's a good name for it, because it kind of splits the gap a little bit. I'm personally a big fan of a 4-inch survival knife, or a 4-inch quote-unquote survival knife, because I think it's a size that is very handy, and it's always likely to be on your person. It's compact enough you're not going to want to leave it behind. 3V steel on this, US made again, 334 G10 handles, generous in the length. I did mention slightly larger than average hands earlier. I've got like an extra finger's width length of handle right there. So if I'm wearing a heavy pair of gloves in the winter, or work gloves, very accommodating in the handle right here. And very all-around useful shape, not just bushcraft. Now, if you find sharpening tedious, when it comes time to sharpen these, and you will need to do that, you may find it a little extra tedious. I showed you that because you asked for like the best edge retention, and these are the ones that I think kind of can give you the best edge retention without pushing it too far beyond something that would be tough enough. Did I explain that well? However, my personal choice here, I'm a big fan of steels like AEBL, that's well known. I'm a big fan of simpler carbon steels, that's well known too. Those aren't going to hold an edge as long. I find, however, a really good sweet spot between the two, between the real simple carbons and stainlesses and the high-end tough powder metals here, is A2. Now this LT Wright Camp Muck is obviously a bit more of a hunting knife, but A2 holds an edge really well, holds an edge better than the simple carbon steels. It is plenty tough, and I don't find it particularly difficult or tedious to sharpen. So maybe check out some options in A2. We don't have a ton on the website right now that are really like bushcraft specific. LT Wright uses it a lot. We are out of stock on most of it. However, the A2 stuff we have in stock right now is Camp Mucks, I think. But we'll try to get some more in. Hogue makes some great knives in A2, more combat oriented, but you could certainly apply it to bushcraft if you wish. But maybe check that out. I think that's a really sweet spot, often overlooked because it's not the latest and greatest, and it's been, proven reliable. And a lot of times reliable things are boring.
Toyotas.
Case in point. Yeah, check out some A2. Great middle ground, I think. Or go for the Magna Cut or 3V. If you don't like those, find something you like with those steels. You should be pretty well taken care of. All right, let's do the lightning round. Orbaladin says, what are the differences between a fighting knife and a combat knife? It's interesting the use of the term fighting knife here, because I usually draw a distinction between tactical knives and combat knives, where like all combat knives are tactical knives, but not all tactical knives are combat knives. But fighting knife is almost, as generic as tactical knife, maybe, or maybe it skews a little more towards combat. But the distinction I make is a combat knife has like military connotations. It's designed for not just fighting, not just, tactical use, but combat, which, that's a military thing. By and large, citizens don't engage in combat. Soldiers engage in combat. Again, I know there are exceptions. Don't come at me in the comments.
And soldiers also need their knives to do other things.
Well, this is true. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that aspect. Yeah, I mean, the fighting utility is... Well, they don't call this the fighting utility, do they? I'm thinking of something else. It's like the BK7. The BK7 is the combat utility. But this is a Mark II, or the 1217, or the K-bar, whatever you want to call it. It is a combat knife. It's probably... Well, I've heard it said that this knife is the best combat knife ever issued by any military in the world. That's not to say special units might not procure something that's better or whatever, but like in terms of issued knives, this might have been historically the best. This karambit is a tactical knife. It's not a combat knife. You could call it a fighting knife, really, because, fighting. Anyway. So, didn't get as lightning-y as I expected, but that's where I draw the distinction between combat knives and any other types of knives that are tactical or fighty or self-defense-y or whatever. Does it have military roots or military applications? Even if it wasn't something that's issued to the military, if it's got that sort of thing going on, combat knife, in my opinion. But feel free to disagree with me, of course, in the comments. Absolrude76 says, can you try to flick open a Lander 5? I can try. I haven't tried before we started filming, but you're really trying to get me here. The Lander 5 is a great budget knife. It's about $30, but it is small. I do have slightly larger than average hands. And big hands, small knife, hard to flick, usually. We've also got Teflon washers, not the most free flicking of pivots. All right, so here goes nothing. I'm going to try it. Oh, I'm already not liking this. Oh, first fail. First attempt, first failure. Yeah, I'm never going to get it. Sorry. I tried. So I did what you asked. You didn't say I had to succeed, but I did try. And that's an important thing in life.
It's the try that counts.
Cool knife, not flickable by me. Next question comes from Joan Stapleton. What works best for an 80-year-old woman? Some cat litter boxes are really difficult for me to lift and pour, so I cut off the top 1 to 2 inches so I can just scoop out the litter using pocket knives which get stuck or drag. I need your recommendations. Sure. Cutting through cardboard, the thicker the blade is, obviously the thicker the greater the drag. We did a video on cardboard slayers a few years ago, and it's those real thin blades that really work well. Honestly, for this, I'm going to recommend a box cutter blade, utility knife, and something easy to use. You mentioned your age. I don't know if you're, dealing with any like arthritis or anything like that. There's a tons of options. We'll leave a link to the whole utility knife section down below. But the James brand Palmer could be really cool. They've got a bunch of cool colors. It reminds me a bit of like old school IMAX, some of them. They're $39, and the mechanism is super, super easy to use. You kind of push down. This can be done one-handed or two-handed if you need a little bracing. You don't get a full half blade exposed, so there's a bit of the middle of this edge that's never going to get used, and that's kind of a shame, but plenty there to slice the top off some boxes, and changing the blades is also super, super easy on these. There's actually 3 positions. There's the middle position, and you'll notice, oops, I went too far. There is a middle position. There. the button pops up further and you've got a little red dot. When it's in that middle position, you can simply pull the blade out. It doesn't get simpler than that. And then when it's dull, you can flip it around, start using the other side. And when that side gets dull, replace it with a new one. I think that would be a great option, not just for an 80-year-old, but for a lot of people, I think. Anyway, that's all for the lightning round, which means we're into our finalist question of the day, which is, of course, our most seriousest question of the day. And Stuart B., longtime commenter, has nailed it for us this week. This is sort of a comment of the day combined with providing our most serious answer. And this was in response to the fuller discussion we had last week, how fullers are not blood grooves and they're not there to make space for blood to flow out or break suction or anything like that. If you don't know what that is, it's this thing right here. Stuart B. says, the blood groove on the knife is actually designed to trap the topping off a cheesecake when you slice it. And use your pinky finger to scoop out the extra as cutter's perks. Which leads me to a point which a lot of people forget. That's why they call it a fuller, because it fills you up as you eat it. The truth comes out. There we go. Anyway, keep your questions coming, folks. Keep your most serious questions coming in the comments as well. Do you need a Supersteel day in, day out? Or even for specific applications? I would argue, for my personal opinion and my personal preferences, I don't necessarily need Magna Cut in my, or 3V in my Bushcraft knives. I have them. I appreciate them. I like being able to strop and sharpen pretty easily. But you do have to sharpen more often. Where do you fall along that spectrum? I'm sure there's some of us here that fall along the spectrum pretty identifiably. Anyway, keep your questions coming. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description that'll take you to KnifeCenter.com. Don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program or Sezzle options at checkout if you want to break things into smaller payments. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off. See you next time.
We're not going to talk about the mailbox that's been behind you?
You could have told me that was there the whole time.
Thought it was a bit.
Sure wasn't.